Let me get a little bit more light here. Okay. Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. We are going through Bhagavad Gita. We are on chapter 14 and we're going to start with verses 9 through 20. The format is we're going to have two readings, two different translations of these verses, one by Ishwaran, one by Sri Aurobindo. And then Yogeshwar is going to talk about these verses, and then we're going to open it up for questions and comments. If we have time, we will go to the next section. All right, so give me just a second here. David, if you could go ahead and read verses 9 through 20, please. Chapter 14.
Chapter 14, verse 9. Sattva binds us to happiness, rajas bind us to action. Tamas, distorting our understanding, binds us to delusion. Sattvas predominate when rajas and tamas are transformed. Rajas prevail when sattva is weak and tamas overcome. Tamas prevails when rajas and sattvas are dormant. When sattva predominates, the light of wisdom shines through every gate of the body. When rajas predominate, a person runs about pursuing selfish and greedy ends, driven by restlessness and desire. When tamas is dominant, a person lives in darkness, slothful, confused, and easily infatuated. Those dying in the state of sattva attain the pure worlds of the wise. Those dying in rajas are reborn among the people driven by work. But those who die in tamas are conceived in the wombs of the ignorant. The fruits of good deeds is pure and sattvic. The fruit of rajas is suffering. The fruit of tamas is ignorance and insensitivity. From sattva comes understanding, from rajas greed. But the outcome of tamas is confusion, infatuation, and ignorance. Those who live in sattva go upward. Those in rajas remain where they are. But those immersed in tamas sink downwards. The wise see clearly that all action is the work of the gunas. Knowing that which is above the gunas, they enter into union with me. Going beyond the three gunas which form the body, they leave behind the cycle of birth and death, disreptitude and sorrow, and attain to immortality.
Thank you. Thank you, David. So I'm going to read again from 9 through 20, and then we will go to Yogeshwar. Sattva attaches to happiness, rajas to action. Tamas covers up the knowledge and attaches to negligence of error and inaction. Now sattva leads, having overpowered rajas and tamas. Now rajas having overpowered sattva and tamas, and now tamas having overpowered sattva and rajas. When into all the doors in the body, there comes a flooding of light, a light of understanding, perception, and knowledge, one should understand that there has been a great increase and uprising of sattvic guna in the nature. Greed, seeking impulsions, initiative of action, unrest, desire, all this mounts in us when rajas increases. Nescience, inertia, negligence, and delusion. These are born when tamas predominates. If sattva prevails, when the embodied goes to dissolution, then he attains to the spotless worlds of the knowers of the highest principles. Going to dissolution, when rajas prevails, he is born among those attached to action. If dissolved, during the increase of tamas, he is born in the wombs of beings involved in indolence. It is said that the fruit of works is right. It is said that the fruit of works rightly done is pure and sattvic. Pain is the consequence of rajasic works. Ignorance is the result of tamasic action. From sattva, knowledge is born, and greed from rajas, negligence and delusion are of tamas, and also ignorance. They rise upwards who are in sattva. Those in rajas remain in the middle. Those enveloped in ignorance and inertia, the effect of the lowest quality, tamas, go downwards. When the seer perceives that the modes of nature are the whole agency and cause of works, and knows and turns to that which is supreme above the gunas, he attains madbha, the movement and status of the divine. When the soul thus rises above the three gunas, born of the embodiment in nature, he is freed from the subjection to birth and death, and their concomitants, decay, old age, and suffering, and enjoys in the end the immortality of its self-existence. Yogeshwar.
Sattvam sukhe sanjayati raja karmani bharata dhyanamavritya tutama pramade sanjayatyuta. We've talked about all the three qualities of Maya, of Prakriti. And these three qualities are there in our everyday life and are there in us as well. These qualities are there in our surroundings as well. To highlight these points, that these qualities are not only there maybe within our mental states, but then also outside. And they sort of bring an equilibrium between themselves. For example, if we go to an environment where tamas is prevailing, then there will be an equilibrium. They will both try to counter each other. And then the one who will be above the other will win. If you're more prevailing, if your sattva is more prevailing than the tamas of your environment, then you'll be able to make your environment sattva. But if you're not that, if your sattva is not that much prevailing, then the tama of the environment will come in and will make you tamas. So you have to consider all this, your environment, your own self, and the people who you associate with. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati. If the mental space that you are in, like that you build up, is built of happiness always, is built of bliss and peace always, then know that you are in sattva. Then if it's not always sattva, if you're not always in happiness, and most of the time you are asking for a goal, for yourself to do some work. Without a goal, you can't do any work. You need an objective ahead. Then Krishna is saying, Raja Karmani Bharata. Because you're attached to the goal. You're attached to Rajogun. You can't stay without the goal. You can't stay without the desire to get something more. Whether it is getting more money, or it is getting more prestige, or even like increasing your business as well. Yeah? So all those goals ahead that bring up the future, that is part of Rajogun. And how do you know Tamogun is within you? Jnanamavritya tutama pramade sanjayatyuta. When you realize that your cognitive processes are demolishing, are slowly, they can't get to their capacity, then you know that Jnanamavritya tutama, my knowledge is slowly fading away. It's being veiled out by tama. And when does that happen? Pramade sanjayatyuta. We normally put tamogun to either laziness or sleeping. But Krishna here is saying pramade sanjayatyuta. Why pramada? Why focus on pramada? Yesterday, Shrikant asked about the root of pramada. So the root is mother. Yes. Now, mother has two definitions. Yesterday, I pointed out the definition of boasting about yourself. That's mother, yes. But then there's also the definition of that same root, mother, meaning being intoxicated, like mother, madakata, meaning that there is that intoxication that happens. In that way, pramada, meaning that when you're intoxicated, whether it is by something of outside, let's say alcohol, or it is even your own hormones that intoxicate you. Because we normally know in science that when hormones are prevailing, your mental capability is not that much. Because when you're angry, you will go by the anger. You'll not be able to hold on to yourself. Your mental capacity is reduced so much. So Krishna here is saying that when you're intoxicated, let it be external or internal, however you're intoxicated, then tama is prevailing. You should know it. What Krishna here is laying out is something that happens within our lives every day. It's not something, a concept. It's not just a concept, but it's about experiencing it. And if you can experience it even for 3 months consecutively, that where is my raja, where is my sattva, and where is my tama? How often do I get into these states? At any one point in time, we are in one of the states. One is prevailing always. If we pay attention to the gunas, in which guna am I right now? Which guna is prevailing right now? Slowly by slowly, you'll get the hang of it. And you'll be able to now, should I take upon this guna or should I not? Should I accept this guna or should I not? How does this guna prevail? Then you'll also get to know the causes. Why these gunas prevail. And then you'll also be able to get to the results of these gunas. Like when I'm in such a guna, when I'm in such a quality of prakriti, what happens after that? Am I able to talk to someone with clarity? Am I able to communicate with clarity? Am I able to do the right thing at the right time? Or am I always going in circles with my actions? You'll be able to get to the results. And then certainly also you'll be able to know what is happening at that particular time as well. Because if the cause will be the past, the effect will be the future. But then you'll also know how to be here right now, in the present. What does it do here right now? Rajastamascha bhibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata Raja Sattvam Tamaschaiva Tamasattvam Rajastatha. So since we know that the environment affects our mental state, and our mental state also affects the environment. Our mental state also affects the mental state of people around us. And people around us affect us. And we all affect each other. Rajas tamas chabhibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata. When sattva wants to prevail, what should happen? What does it do? Raja tama abhibhuya. It rises up, but what does it make its base on? It makes its base on Raja and Tama. And Raja Sattvam Tamas Chaiva. When Tama rises up, what does it make its base upon? Raja and Sattva. And when Raja rises up, what does it make its base on? Tama and Sattva. One thing to note here is when Raja wants to rise up, it has to have a base. The base will be Tama and Sattva. The same for any of the others. So if I explain one, you'll get to know how the others also prevail. When Raja wants to rise up, it will have to make a base of Tama and Sattva. Without that base of Tama and Sattva, Raja will not be able to prevail. Let me give an example. If you walk 24/7, which is not possible, but just take an example. Like if you walk 24 hours, let's say, the 25th hour, the 26th hour, you'll not be able to walk. Certainly, Raja, for you to be able to walk effectively, you'll have to sleep. You'll have to give in your 6 hours of sleep. That's when Raja will be able to prevail. And how does Raja make Sattva its best? Then while you're working, you'll have these moments of happiness. Oh yes, I've accomplished this. Yes, I've accomplished this goal. And between having another goal, there's that space in between. You've accomplished the goal and you have not yet created another goal for you to be going on to the other part of work. There is that space in between where you're happy. That is the sattva. And if a person continuously works and is not given the sattva, is not given the happiness in between, then he cannot work continuously. He has to be given that happiness in between. He has to get the taste of Raja. He has to be able to get, what am I getting out of this work? It will be the happiness in between. That's when you'll be able to work continuously. So even though yourself, you want to be in Raja, then you should understand what Sattva has a part in it and what Tama has a part in it. And then if you want to also do Sattva, like you want to prevail in Sattva, then know what role does Tama play in me becoming Sattva, and what role does Raja play in me becoming Sattva. Those are crucial points, because normally what we want to do is just go onto one of the gunas. What will happen is you'll just go in circles. You'll never be able to get to that guna if you're only running behind one of the gunas. First thing to do is accept the 3 gunas as they are in you. Without accepting them, there is no going ahead. So accept you need sleep. Accept that you need happiness. Accept that you also need to do work. Then, between all of them, have an up and down. According to your own self, according to your own nature, can you adjust the nodes of Raja and Tama so that you can bring about Sattva at a particular point in time? Can you adjust the nodes of Tama and Sattva so that you can bring Raja at one point in time? That is crucial. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyat vivruddham sattvamityuta. How should we know that Sattva is prevailing right now? How should we know that in this state is what I want to get? Because normally we want to get to Sattva, yes. However, we'll find out what Krishna says after verses 20. But normally we want to be we all want to be happy. We want to do work, yes. But why do we want to do work? Because we want to be happy. We all want to sleep, or we want to just lay on the couch. Why? Because there is that essence of happiness we get in it as well. We don't want to do anything that makes us unhappy. We also don't want to do anything that makes people around us unhappy. We always want happiness to prevail. Within all of us, there is the thirst for happiness. There is the thirst for bliss. There is the thirst for peace. That thirst, whether we are doing work or we are laying back, the thirst for bliss is always there. How do we know that that bliss has come upon us? Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate. When in all the doorways, now the different ways of counting the doorways, but normally we'll say the 5 senses would be the doorways. So from all the 5 senses, when you're able to get prakasha, meaning there is that sense of knowledge that you're getting. Because what does prakasha mean? You can definitely, if you take prakasha as its literal meaning, you can only have light through your eyes, not through your other senses. How do you get light through your other senses? Then, for example, when you have that subtle sense of knowledge through all your senses, not only the eyes, but when you can just sit and listen to the noise around. It is subtle, but sometimes you realize that I've been in this place for so long, but I've not realized the subtle noises that are in here. Why? Because I've not been in Sattva Guna. Each and every sense gets to its highest when you're in Sattva Guna. Each and every sense can just be open to what nature has to provide. And what happens after that? Jnanam yada tada vidya. At that time, you'll have the most fundamental of knowledge. You'll have the essence of knowledge. Normally, would think, when does knowledge come? Knowledge should come from thought. Knowledge should come from intellect. Knowledge should come when your mind has gone places, when your mind has thought a lot. Would normally want to think that knowledge comes out of thinking so much. Knowledge comes out of Rajogun, because you have to have activity in your mind for knowledge to come. But in Indian tradition, how does knowledge come? Knowledge comes when you're in a place of bliss. That's when all your senses will be able to capture what is and leave out what is not. That is why the yoga tradition, the yoga sutras have dhyana and dharana within them. Because dhyana brings about a state of bliss. It brings about the light that comes within all your five senses. And when your five senses are lightened up, that's when you're able to get the true knowledge. You're able to perceive the world as it is, not making a barrier of your intellect, not making a barrier of your concepts between yourself and the real world as it is. That is when you'll be able to get to true knowledge. Lobha pravritirarambha karmanam shama spriha rajasyetani jhayante vivridhe bharatarshabha. Three things. How does Raja come into prevalence? Lobha, meaning that the greed, want that it should only be mine. Pravritirarambha, you have to start something. And then karmanam ashama spriha, you always want to work. You cannot stay without working. If you do not work, or if you get to a stage of retirement, you feel that my identity has been separated from me. Rajasyetani jayante vivridhe bharatarshava. When Rajasa is getting to its peak, that's when these three things will happen. Why isn't it that knowledge happens in Rajogun? Now, the normal concept of work, we should work hard. That's the normal concept we have about work. But then the concept of work that we have in Indian tradition is you should work with love. You should love your work. Because if you do not love your work, however hard you want to work right now, you'll not be able to take it for years to come. You'll only be able to work hard right now. You'll not be able to work with love. And when you're able to work with love, you're able to take it to higher steps. Even the work that you are doing, you'll be able to take it to higher steps. And working hard is good because you'll get a lot right now. But then if you're thinking about the future, then even right now, we all understand that which career should we get into? We should get into a career that we love. We should get into a career that pulls us towards it, not that we have to pull it towards us. So that is now identifying that Sattva Gun should be there. Something should pull us, not us pulling it. When we want knowledge, this is the criteria for knowledge. Something should pull you towards itself, not you going aggressively towards it. What happens when you go aggressively towards it? It will be called pravritirarambha. You will have to start the work. You'll have to do the work. Whereas when you love the work will be done. There is a difference between those two. Between you having to do the work and work being done by its own right. The difference comes in practice, and the difference comes over a long period of time. If I have to do work day in, day out for a whole year, I'll get tired. But if work just happens from me, then whether it's day in, day out and year after year, it doesn't matter for me. I'll be able to do the work as well as I started it. And then the lobha, the greed. What happens when you're greedy? When you want things for yourself only. You don't want things for the society. You don't want things for others. What greed does here is making you self-centered, removing you from the identity of the center and making you identify yourself with the peripheral, identifying yourself with the wants and the desires that you have and taking it to the next level, whereby karmanam ashama spriha, you have so much greed that now you can't leave the work. You cling to the work. You can't stay without the work. Rajasyeta nijayante vivriddhe bharatarshava. All that happens when rajas is prevailing. What we mean by prevailing here is that all the three will remain at each and every moment in you. It's just that one prevails over the other. Would normally want to think that, oh, if I want to work, I should only have rajogun within me. Sattva and tamogun should not be within me. But that never happens. All the three work together. And it is by our perspective that somebody has to tell us that one prevails over the other. And by that, we feel like one is dominating the other. But then if you look from the perspective of reality, what happens is it's just how they work upon each other. Because they have an understanding between themselves, let's say. Sattva and Tama will be the building blocks for Rajasa. And then they also know that there will be a time when Rajasa will help me get up and prevail. They have a mutual understanding between themselves. It's not that when Raja is dominating, it's like dominating in how we understand dominance. But it prevails. It's just now that it's prevailing. It's not that it will prevail forever. And even when Rajasa is prevailing, it itself knows that I'm prevailing just for some time. I can't prevail forever. Even a person who is always working, there'll be a time he needs rest. And there'll be a time when he needs the happiness of life. He needs that reason why I am living. Why should I be living? Why should I be doing this work? Because I'm getting the happiness out of it. So all the three work within a mutual understanding. Aprakasho pravrittischa pramado moha evacha tamasyeta nijayante vivridhe kurunandana. What happens when Raja is prevailing? How do you know that Raja is prevailing at this moment? Aprakasha, meaning all your five senses will be dim. They'll not be able to take the knowledge from outside. They will just want to cling into themselves. They don't want to go outside now. Apravrittischa. You do not want to think. You do not want to even move your hand. That is Raja. And Pramada and Moha. These four things will happen when Tama is prevailing. There are also some instances whereby there is this work that we have to do. It is a beneficial piece of work. Why we do not want to do that work is just because we have an excuse for it. For example, I have to, I have been given this piece of work. I'm in this ashram and I've been given this piece of work, maybe to make food, yes? Or even Like in your lives, you've been given this piece of work of maybe reading this before we get together, before the meetup. We have to read this. Why don't we read it? Or why do I not make the food for the ashram? What we have in our box or what we have in our mind is that I have an excuse for it, so I'll be able to get around it. Let me do this, I'll do that later. What is that? You're trying not to do the work. However, you try with all your intellect that I should get some excuse out of it. The excuse may be highly logical, because if you give that excuse to somebody else, they'll say, yes, that's fine. It's fine you didn't do the work. But step back and ask yourself, did I have that situation at hand, or did I just make up the excuse? Now, if you made up the excuse, then at that time you are in Raja, in Tama, sorry. You are in Tama because you did not want to do the work. And why did you not want to do the work? Because you just wanted to sit back, or you wanted to do something else. That's why you did not do this work. And that something else was just by your desires. Now, pramada is also said there, that you do something that you're not supposed to do at that time. You do something that is not really important. And mainly it's dominated by your desires. It's dominated by, oh, I just want to sleep, or I just want to forget my sorrows. So what do? You just sit in front of a TV and start, scrolling. You have no perfect, clear goal of what you're doing, but you just start scrolling. And then when somebody comes by, what do you say? Oh, I've just had so much work to do, and my mind was just not getting to concentrate. That's why I'm just scrolling through the TV. But step back and think, does that help you get out of tamogun? Or does it help you go more into tamogun? What will help you concentrate on work? Would it be just scrolling on TV, or would it be trying to do something constructive? So, having known this, how to get into a guna and how to get out of a guna, it is the skill that you need here, and it is the practice that you need. If you're able to know how to get into a guna and how to get out of a guna, then you know the skills. Then you have the skills. You know how to walk. You know how to be happy. You know how to sleep as well. That is a skill of life. And that's practical. That will be able to help you do anything in your life, not just now, but even in the future. Anything you want to do, anything you want to tackle, any goals you want to tackle, you'll be able to know that I need 6 hours of sleep, I'll give it, and then I'll tackle the goal. And then I'll also find my happiness in the goal. In that way, you'll be able to go ahead and meet your goals rather than working 20 hours a day and then not being able to work as perfectly the next day as we normally do with our work. We don't schedule it, and then we trip over at some points in time. And then we also justify our anger because, oh, I've been working all this time, and so my anger is justified. But is it that your anger is justified by you doing all this work? Or is it that you didn't schedule well? Yada sattve pravriddhetu pralayam yati dehabhrit tadottama vidam lokan amalan pratipadyate. What happened? Sorry, yes, you want to say something, Shrikant?
Go ahead.
Okay. So when sattva is prevailing, and let's say, just take an example that you sleep when sattva is prevailing. And as we've talked about it, you can also sleep in sattva guna. So what happens when you sleep after having read a very nice book or having had a good conversation with your partner? What happens in that sleep? And how do you wake up after that? Krishna here is saying that having gone into sleep, yeah, when you've had that sattva guna just at night, what happens? You sleep well, and then when you wake up, tadottama vidam lokan amalan pratipadyate, you will have the greatest insight into reality. You will be able to wake up fresh to do anything that comes in your pledge. You'll not run away from anything, and you'll not go towards something. You'll just be. And uttama vidam, what uttama vidam means, those who have the greatest knowledge, you will be in that state in which those who have the greatest knowledge normally are. In that state, you'll be able to perceive the world in a different way. How do we normally perceive the world if we are always working towards a goal? For example, if you're working towards a goal at work, we sometimes tend to neglect our families. We sometimes tend to neglect our social lives. That is Rajogun prevailing. But what happens when Sattva Guna is prevailing? You're able to give that much time at work, do it well, and then also give that much time to your family, to give that much time to your social life. You'll be able to do everything. And then sometimes you see this person who is so good at work, who is so good even in his social life, with his friends, with his family, and everything is so nice. And then you're asking, how does this happen? Like, I burn the midnight candle and I can't get my work done. And I want my family to be with me, but they just can't adjust with me. I try to make up with friends, but they do not understand me. All this happens when you're not in the perfect state. You'll not be able to perceive the world as it is. Because when yourself you're not in bliss, how will you perceive the world? That the world is, oh, it's full of sorrows because you're in sorrow. That's how you'll perceive the world. Because you perceive the world with the lens of your emotions. You perceive the world with the lens of your intellect. What have you experienced of the world? That's how the world is. What will happen if you're always in Sattva Guna? It will be a state of bliss. And that will always multiply itself. If you're in Sattva Guna, you'll be able to cultivate an environment with Sattva Guna. Because now people will interact you with a different view. Even though a person himself on his own right may be Rajoguni, but when he interacts with you, he will have that, let's say, that way of interacting with you that will be of Sattva Guna. He won't interact with his own guna, but he'll interact with you in a different way because he knows who you are. So you also affect other people. And then looking at you, they will also change their lifestyle, that this person has something within himself. So changing yourself changes other people. Having changed other people now let's say everyone around you has changed. When you're feeling down and you now talk to them, they will have a view of you saying that this person is always in Sattva Guna. So they will talk to you with that perspective. And at this time, you're feeling down. So when you talk to them, it will be a multiplication. It will be like you're getting your sattva gun back when you did it. This is normal life, and this is how we should interact with people. Have a base of your own self, like have a gun that you have made up, and then people will interact with you in the same way. And then when you need that gun back, when you need that quality back, you'll get it from the environment, you'll get it from the people. And you create the environment, and the environment also creates. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate tatha praleenastamasi mudhayoni shujayate. What happens when you're always thinking, because normally there are two types of raja here now. One raja is about doing work, physical work. Another type of raja is doing mental work, like having so many thoughts in your mind. What will happen when you're in such a state of rajogun, and you want to go to sleep? What will happen? Because pralayam here, this is just one definition I'm doing, and then we shall go onto another definition of pralayam. So when you go to sleep and you have all these thoughts in your mind, karma sangi shujayate. You'll have these thoughts in your mind and you'll go to sleep. When you wake up the next day, you'll have those thoughts in an expanded way within your mind. And those thoughts will continuously roll in and roll out. You'll have more perspectives of your thought. You'll be able to make them better. You'll be able to make them flower. You'll be able to make them, like, for example, any concept you have, let it be about your work, or maybe there's a problem that you've gotten into with your work. You sometimes realize that when you're thinking about it, you're not able to get a solution. But when you're thinking and then you get to sleep, the next day, automatically you have a solution. You have some solution to it. Or maybe you don't have a solution when you're working on the solution, but when you move your mind away from that, and then you get back to it, you instantly have a solution. So pralayam gatva here, the meaning I'm making here is, you're in raja, yes, and then you sleep in that state. When you wake up, you'll be in an heightened state of raja. You'll have the same state, but in height. Yeah. And what will happen? Karma sangi shujayate. You'll have that same type of thought, even better, when you wake up. Tatha praleenas tamasi mudhayoni shujayate. What will happen when you're in tamogun and you sleep? Yeah? When you wake up, you'll just feel like going back to sleep. When you wake up, you'll always just feel like, should I wake up or should I just go back to sleep? Should I crawl back into sleep? And here you realize that, there's some people who keep the alarm. And when the alarm rings, they're instant, just go, and then they know what to do next. And then there's some people who keep the alarm, and then I'll keep another alarm now. I'll put it to snooze. And then they get back to sleep. And then when it snoozes again, they're like, should I wake up? That question is always there. Should I wake up? Why is that? Because the way you went to sleep was in tamogun. You did not go to sleep in rajogun or sattvagun. You went to sleep in tamogun. So what will happen when you wake up? You'll wake up in tamogun, and a heightened state of tamogun, whereby you don't want to do anything. This is part of life. It's a science of life, let's say. The science of gunas is a science of life, and it affects each and every part of our life. The way we wake up shows the way we'll do our first task at hand. And the way we do our first task at hand shows us how we'll be in the afternoon. It also shows us how we'll sleep again. And how we sleep, again, it will show us how we wake up. So it's this cycle, day in, day out. We need to make a few tweaks in that cycle so that we know which guna is prevailing at which time and how we should tweak into it, how we should live a better life. Now, another way of interpreting pralayam gatva, how it's normally interpreted, is when at the time of death, yes, and we are in sattva guna, then normally, like we also understood this concept of how we can sleep and then we wake up with a heightened state of the same guna. In the same way, when we die in a certain guna, when you have come to death, then the next time we wake up, which will be our birth, we'll wake up in a heightened state of birth. Now, the same thing, but it will be flowered more. Like it will come to, like if it was a seedling at that point, it will sprout out. This is the concept, whether it is in sattva gun, rajo gun, or tamo gun, any of the gunas. But first understand it in our lives right now. If you understand it in our lives right now, then understanding it at the time of death is not difficult. Karmana sukritasyahu satvikam nirmalam phalam rajasastu phalam dukkham ajnanam tamasa phalam. Understand what the effect will be of you being in a certain state right now. If you're in a certain state right now, what will happen years to come? What will happen days to come? Karmana sukritasyahu satvikam nirmalam phalam. If you are in sattva gun right now, then you'll be able to reciprocate that. You'll be able to multiply that years to come. You'll get those fruits back. For example, if you're always let's take an example. At one point in time, for an hour in a day, yeah, you're always watching a certain type of, maybe let's say a TV show or a movie, but certain type, specific type. Now, by specific type, I mean that it's sattva guni, let's say. Or you're reading a book that is of a specific type. Day in, day out, you're reading the same book at that same time. What will happen? What is the effect of that? You certainly realize that the book has ended now. But at the same time, maybe it is 6 to 7 that you read the book. When it's 6, and then you're doing something else now, since the book has ended, you're doing something else, you're interacting with somebody, you realize that you're in that state, you're in sattva guna. Like you don't want to argue with that person, and you're also not like aggressive with that person, but you're in sattva guna. You just nirmalam phalam, you're in peace with that person. And then you'll feel like, I'm always agitated by this person. Why at this time have I not been agitated by him? Why haven't I become angry with him at this time? Then if you go back, you realize that at this specific time, I've been doing something that was made up of sattva. What you do right now goes into the future. It has effects upon you. In the same way, if you're doing something of Rajogun right now, know it, that sorrow will befall you. You'll stumble onto something and dukkha will come. Sorrow will befall you. You should know it while you're doing it right now. And what will happen if I am in tama? Ajnana. You'll not feel like doing anything. And tama, you normally see it. For example, when it's time to sleep, you feel sleepy. That is normal because you've done it as a habit through life. And when we are young, there was no cycle of sleeping. We would, like when we are baby, there will be no cycle of sleeping. We'll just sleep when we feel like. But since we have made it a habit that it's between this and this time that we sleep, when that time strikes, we feel sleepy. Whatever we are doing, we'll just feel sleepy. So that's an effect. At that particular time, let's say you're sleeping for 6 hours, like maybe from 10 to 4. When it strikes 10, you'll feel sleepy. And then when it strikes 10:30, you'll be like, you'll not be able to do any work. By 11, you're exhausted. You'll be like, I can't even think about anything. I need to clear my thoughts. I need to sleep. That, at that point in time, you realize that all your senses are pulling back. Even your mind is pulling back. It can't think now. So it's going into ajnanam. This is just daily activity. Now just imagine, as a person, you are always in tamogun. You're always wanting to sleep or give an excuse of not doing work. Or you're always wanting to be lazy. What will happen? In your life, that's what will come up again. That's what will face you. All that will make you not go towards your goals. It will stop you from going towards your goals. You'll have a goal. What will happen is, oh, you've read a nice book that talks about waking up early. And then what will happen the next day? You'll not be able to wake up early. You'll put an alarm and then you'll snooze it so many times. Why? Because you've made it a habit of not waking up early. How do you make it a habit of waking up early? Start with waking up early. And better, you can start with sleeping well. If you sleep in sattva guna, then you'll be able to wake up as you need, as your nature, or as your will. And your will becomes stronger in that way. If you're able to manifest any of the gunas at any time that you need them. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam rajaso lobha evacha pramada moho tamaso bhavato jnanamevacha. So in verse 9, this is something that I needed to point out. In verse 9, Sattvam sukhe sanjayati, meaning in happiness is sattva prominent, like it flowers in that at that time. And then in verse 17, Sattvat sanjayate jnana. From sattva, jnana flowers out. So we know that from sattva, sukh comes. From happiness, sattva comes. From sattva, knowledge comes. And then it's a cycle again. Again, from knowledge, sattva will come. So that cycle is what I want to point out. That from happiness, sattva will come out. And from sattva, again, happiness will come out. It's the cycle. It's always that cycle that matters. And that's how you'll be able to know what the gunas are. Because once you get into a cycle, you'll know that for some time, I won't be able to get out of the cycle. But know that I'm in this guna. Rajaso lobha evacha. What will happen if I'm in Rajoguna? Lobha will come out. The greed will start catching me. You'll first have a goal. That goal will be good. Sometimes what happens in our lives is we have a goal that is really good. If we lay out that goal at the start, it looks really good. It's good for you, it's good for the community, it's good for everyone. What happens when you're going into karma? Slowly by slowly, that goal it has a very small view. It contracts a little, and it becomes focused onto your business, not worrying about how people's lives are. So it will continue contracting onto what you feel is right. It's not only the greed we see in a particular person, but it's the greed of people around us as well. Something always starts good. If you want to start something, you'll always have a good perspective in mind. But what happens if you're always in Rajoguna? The greed will start catching upon you. You'll always want to think about yourself, how you get more customers, rather than how the customers can live well, how the customers can have a choice of their own. You always want to attract them towards your company rather than allowing the customers to have a choice of their own. So sometimes the greed catches up upon you. And that is something that we should understand, that even at any one point in time, when you're starting something, it's always good. Then understand the guna in which you're going to start it and the guna in which you're going to be when you're doing that particular type of work. That will underlie what will happen to that particular piece of work. That will underlie what will happen to your business, what will flower out of it. Pramadamo ho tamaso bhavato jnanamevacha. What will happen if you're always in tamoguna? Pramada and moha will happen. It's a given. And once you know how this happens, once you know the cycles, once you know the cause and effect, then you will also handle the situation at hand. You can also be present and know, if I totally, if I give all my energy to now, if I give all my energy to the guna that I am having right now, then I can affect what I will have in the future. I can affect the whole cycle. Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha madhye tishtanti rajasaha jagunya guna vrittistha adho gachanti tamasaha. What will happen to those people who are always in sattva? Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha. You'll see their lives, even though by money or by prestige or by fame, they may not have all that much.
Just a second. Looks like there is a problem. Okay, go ahead.
So, talking about people in Sattva, normally, maybe in their lives, they don't have that much money or they don't have that much prestige. They don't have that much fame. But they themselves will be happy. They're always getting to greater steps in their life, greater heights. For them, that height is enough. They do not need a height of fame or prestige. They do not need a height of money for them to sit on. For them, they'll always be going up and up within their intellect, within their knowledge. Normally, they will be improving. They'll keep on improving in all facts of life, in all factors of life. Madhya tishthanti rajasa. Now, see how Krishna here is saying, Madhya tishthanti rajasa. Those who are in Rajogun will stay in the middle. Our notion of what Rajogun is, or our notion of what going up is totally different. Our notion of what going up is if somebody has gotten that much fame, if somebody has gotten that much money, then he is above. Or even we look up to, in this, like normally, we normally look up to, whom do we look up to? Sports persons or actors? Those are the normal people we look up to. And why do we look up to them? Yes, we look up to them for their talent. Yes, but we also look up to them for their fame and their money. Now, what we normally forget is the hard work that they did behind that. What they went through behind that fame, what they went through behind that money. I'm not saying don't look up to them or look, what I'm saying is look up to those qualities that they've had to go to, they've had to encapture within themselves for them to get to that point. Those qualities are important. When they were young, how did they have their life? What did they do to get to this stage? And then sometimes what happens is when they've gotten to that stage, their guna changes, their qualities change, because now they want to attract more people rather than do their talent more. Rather than, what would you call it? Make their talent to their perfect, like flower their talent. What are they doing right now? I'm not saying all, but normally those we look up to, they're mainly looking up to fame. They're looking up to an award, or they're looking up to how many people, how would I get the attention of so many people? You realize that at one point in time, their quality was different. They just wanted to flower their own talent. But now their qualities change. And when you're looking up to them, look at the qualities that they had to get for them to come to this level, not the qualities that they're manifesting at this level. So those 2 points are different. And Krishna here is saying that look at how they have gotten to flower their qualities. They have come up. Now, what they are doing right now is normally what happens is when we get to a stage, when we have a stage, then we start doing things of getting attention of people or doing trivial things. What happens then is Jaganya Guna Vrittistha Adho Gachanti Tamasa. We start doing things that will take us down the hill. Any activity that we're doing just to stay there. Sometimes it's also, we need to think about this in our lives as well. We do something to get to some fame. Maybe we have not done it for the fame, but fame has just come. That's also fine. Now, when you've gotten to the fame, there are those things that you want to do to hold on to the fame, or hold on to just to that much talent that will allow you to be there. What should you hold on to is the question. Should you hold on to the talent or should you hold on to the fame? Krishna here is saying there will be a time when you're holding on to the talent. urdhvam gachanti sattvastha. You'll always be going up and up. Because what is a talent? A talent is something that you have nothing in front of you. There's no desire in front of you. There's no desire of money. There's no desire of fame. But you just like doing that. It's your hobby. That's your talent. So, urdhvam gachanti sattvastha. And then madhya tishtanti rajasa. When you get to a stage, what will you start doing? You'll start, I've gotten this much talent. It's enough for me. Now you'll start doing things for your fame, marketing and publicity and that. So you'll also hold on to your talent a bit. But then now you're involving your energy, you're investing your energy into something of attention seeking. I'm not only talking about those people who have attained it, but even us, within our society, within our small groups, we normally do that. And when you're doing that, you're doing madhya tishtanti rajasa. Now, there are some times when you even forget about your talent, how you got up the hill, and you now only go on to attention seeking. At that time, from within, you become empty. Only your show from outside is what you have. And slowly by slowly, you're going down the hill. Krishna is saying, pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to getting fame or getting money or the outside, but pay attention to yourself from the inside. What is happening to you? Because you getting the talent was you going up. And now you yourself from within, you're getting empty. That becoming empty is going down the hill.
Can I give one example?
Sure.
The biggest example I see is that of Indian classical musicians. See, Indian classical music is a deeply spiritual art. And there are many, many people who devote their lives to building that ability. And one of the things I've noticed is that, when they're learning, they're actually passionately, in love with that learning, and they're trying to express the deepest of what their soul has in their music. Now, unfortunately, for many, many, many talented people, the worst thing that happens to them is that they become famous. Of the people who become famous, roughly, I would say maybe 70 to 80% of the people then start focusing on how to please the audience, how to do something which is unusual so that the audience who doesn't understand the music as much and gets impressed by showy stuff, they start to try to please that, and they lose the connection with this deep, expressive ability that actually got them there. There are very few people who maintain the humbleness, who will continue to say, like some of the great people, like Bhimsen Joshi is one of the topmost, they will say, oh, at the age of 80, that I'm still trying to understand this rag, and they actually have that kind of attitude of saying, I am exploring the deepest part of who I am with this music. And it lives only when I am fully present, trying to express it as best as I can. And my consciousness, the Atma, my psyche is so deep and so rich that I'm still trying to grapple with it. And they produce incredible music throughout their life. But unfortunately, many people they reach up to a point with the right attitude, but then they get attached to what they have achieved there. And moment they do that, they start to kind of go down from there. So just wanted to give you that that example. Please go on.
Nanyam gunebhya kartaram yada drashtanupashyati gunebhyascha param vetti madbhavam sodhigacchati. Krishna here is now summarizing now what happens. We have understood what Sattva Guna is, what Rajo Guna is, what Tamo Guna is. Having understood all that, understand this. Nanyam gunebhya kartaram. When you understand that everything that is happening within the peripheral, there is none other than these three qualities that are tweaking them, that are playing around with them. Then you understand that this is what reality is. Yada drashtanupashyati. Krishna has given this concept whereby you understand that all these three qualities is what is playing around in this world, and then you become a drashta, you become the seer. When you understand this, this is also a practice on its own, because normally we have talked about the practice of just listening or just being a seer to your thoughts or being a listener to your thoughts. But what Krishna here is saying is more fundamental, more essential to practice. When you understand that everything that is happening is just within the gunas, and then you stay in the middle at the center and you just become the seer of everything, including the gunas and including each and every action. Normally it's easy to become a seer of each and every action that is happening. Krishna here is saying also become a seer of the gunas themselves. Become a seer of the qualities of Prakriti. At that time, you will be able to know what is beyond the gunas. Why has Krishna talked about the gunas? It's not for you to stay in the gunas. It's for you to understand the gunas, accept them fully within yourself. And then what you should do with them is gunebhya param vetti. You understand that something is beyond these three qualities. Madbhavam sodhigacchati. After having known what the gunas are, after having known that all the activities, because change is everything that happens in Prakriti. Purusha has no change. The seer, the kshetragya, has no change within himself. All the change, all the activity is within the Prakriti. It's within the Maya. It is caused by these three qualities. When we understand that, then we're able to get beyond the three qualities. When you're able to get beyond the three qualities, madbhavam sodhigacchati. He gets to the state in which I am. Now, one fundamental thing here is you cannot run away from the gunas for you to get beyond the gunas. You have to understand them from start to the end. Whether it is tamoguna, when it comes, you have to have that acceptance of the tamoguna within yourself. Know the cause of it, because what happens is, when we don't know the cycle of the cause and the effect, then normally what happens is we get so much involved within the gunas. So understand the cycle. When you're in tamoguna, don't run away from it. accept it. When you're in acceptance, you realize this is the cause of tamogun. This is the effect of tamogun. Know it through experience, not only through what somebody else tells you or through what Gita tells you. Know it through experience. Experience it. Have some times when you're reading a book and you feel that happiness. Concentrate on the happiness. Pay attention to the happiness. Don't run away from the happiness. When you're in sorrow, don't run away from the sorrow. Pay attention to the sorrow. Pay attention to that dukkha that is coming to you. When you're feeling sleepy or you're having an excuse, don't run away from the excuse. Know it is there. Know why it has come and know the effect of that. When you're feeling lazy or sleepy, know the reason for it. Know in what state you are right now and know the effect of it. When you understand everything through experience, and even normally what we do is we have concepts around this. We have concepts around the gunas, that this guna is bad. You should not involve yourself with it. This guna is good. Always try to get into this guna. But what is fundamental here is understand it. If tamogun comes, don't run away. Because if you run away, it will run behind you. It will come behind you. So understand it as it is. Don't just build a concept and start running away from it. If you understand it with experience in your life, then you'll be able to know it is there. Allow it in Prakriti and know yourself as different from it because you're the seer of it. You're not indulged within it. Guna netan atityatrin dehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukkhai vimukto mritamashnute. What happens when you go beyond these three qualities? And you see here, Krishna is saying, not even Sattva Guna. According to what Krishna is saying, all these three qualities are at the same level. Let them be all at the same level. Get beyond that. Like when you're at the peak of a mountain, whether down on earth, there may be peaks and troughs on the land. There may be valleys on the land. But from the peak of the mountain, all that is just flattened out. So what Krishna here is saying that Gunan etan atityatrin, when you're beyond all these three gunas, when you're the seer, when you're the drashta, what do you realize? That janma, whether it is birth or whether it is death, is it old age or is it sorrow? You certainly just become free from it. And just becoming free from it, even becoming free from happiness, even becoming free from sorrow, becoming free from the birth and becoming free from death, just becoming free and looking at it. Vimukto amrutamashute. Having becoming free from that, amrutamashute, you'll be in that state forever. And in verse 19, Krishna says, Madbhavam sodhigacchati. That person comes to the state in which I am.
Yogeshwar, that was just wonderful. Now I have several things that I wanted to tell you about what I really liked. But let's just do a little bit of planning. What time do you need to leave?
Oh, yeah. 8:30. Yeah, I need to leave at 8:30.
Okay. So we've got, so what I'm going to do is that I do want to give you feedback. So folks, so first we're going to do feedback. So I'm going to give my feedback. You're welcome to give your feedback, and then we'll hold questions for a little bit later. And what we're going to do is that we're going to do the third part on next Thursday. So if you have questions at that time, but I do want to give feedback. So firstly, this is really amazing because this is really psychology. It's very deep ideas of psychology. It is idea of accepting the distinction between the Purusha and Prakriti. It is seeing how much is there in Prakriti, that entire diagram that we have, center and periphery. All these gunas are movements within it. You know, the movement, sattva is towards the center, raja is round and round, and tama is away from the center. But all of these are movements. And these movements is what Prakriti is about. But what Krishna is saying is that there is a Purusha, there is a center. And that center doesn't move. And that is your awareness, that is your seeing ability, that is a kshetrajna. And he's ultimately distinguishing that from all these three. I found it very interesting talking about the pursuit of sattva gun. So when you're trying to pursue sattva gun, you have to realize that rajas and tamas are part of pursuing it. They are always there and they are part of pursuing. You have to make your peace with them. You have to identify the right relationship with them. So that point about when you're pursuing sattva, what is the role of rajas and tamas, and what approach do you have to it while pursuing the sattva? So that was amazing. The point about the interaction between environment and you was excellent point, that if you are pursuing sattva gun primarily, and you create an environment which is full of sattva gun, then even when you are faltering, the environment supports you, just like you support the environment when it is faltering. So there is that interaction between the environment and you. That was amazing. I always like this point about rebirth and these two different meanings that you talk about. Traditionally, it is taken as life, what happens in the next life, but seeing that is actually applicable to us. First, the way you sleep will shape how you wake up. And the way you wake up is going to shape how you're going to have the day. So that cycle of the day and night. And then looking at it even in smaller cycles, when you're doing something right, you are in that gun. So when you are reading that book, which is full of sattva gun, next thing you do, you will bring that gun to it. So that idea of these cycles being at every scale, and this is, so that building across time in cycles, I think that's huge. Focus on the virtue, not the results. So the idea that if you're pursuing sattva gun, you have to keep pursuing the sattva gun. You will get different results for it, but if anytime you get attached to it, that is being rajas. You're saying, okay, now I'm going to hold on to it. And if you can also do it in the tamas way. So, but it's that virtue, focus on virtue rather than the products that keeps happening. The point about acceptance of Prakriti, of saying, understand the Prakriti in all its dimensions. What this is actually showing, this chapter, is that in that diagram of center and periphery, how complex is the dynamic of this movement. It is not just, okay, I'm moving towards the center. Yes, you're moving towards the center, but in order to move towards the center, you also have to be going round and round to some extent. You will also end up resting, which is an integral part of it. And there is this complex interaction going on between your movements the movements of people around you, the environment that you're creating, all of that, and understanding the full dynamics of it is necessary to rise above that. Again, the point about pay attention. That's a huge point, pay attention. Because ultimately it is all about paying attention, about being the seer, being, seeing that awareness, the fresh awareness at all times. So just excellent set of points. So thank you, Yogeshwar, for bringing out the richness of this chapter. I had gotten only some of it, and I think you have added a lot more to this chapter. So now I'm going to open it up for comments from anybody. First, we are going to do comments, any kind of feedback that what you got from the chapter, and then we will do questions. And if we don't have time for questions, that's all right. We will do the questions next time. That's going to be on Thursday. The Thursday part is going to be fairly short, so you'll have plenty of time for questions. So first, let's do comments, and then we'll do questions if we have time. We'll start with Joe, followed by Brian. Joe.
Joe, you're on mute.
Joe, I don't know. There is something wrong with your audio.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
All right, bud. So actually, I'm just going to just reiterate some of the things that actually Shrikant captured so beautifully, is because what you were able to do for me this evening is actually make 3 gunas very practical in a psychological way, so that I understand now, like this, some of the practicality that I was thinking about is that, pursuing in the love of your work and the importance of work and how that's related to how you perform, but also how that's related to greed as well. And if you're not pursuing what you love, that it can kind of lead to a sense of greed, in the sense that you're looking to it's not something that's sustainable. So you're just looking to consume as much as possible over a longer period of time. And seeing how that maps into the gunas is actually profound. One of the interesting things that I also have found is that this, and it's not a question, maybe it kind of is a question, but I just, correct me if I'm wrong, this is only something that can be done within. It can't be done from without. Like, so in that way, it's a little different in the sense of psychology, because everything is being done from you. There's no third party that can actually help you with that in that process. I don't know if that's accurate or irrelevant. I mean, to me, that's my understanding of it. And so correct me if I'm wrong about that. I also, the cycles of sleep actually provided me with a lot of context as when you went through each one of those, and how that are different energy levels that will actually result from each one of those, each one of the gunas, and how we sleep and how our cycles work. Again, the other thing is that moving towards the center became a little bit more evident to me as well, is when you use the example of talent and loving the talent, not what the talent brings, and appreciating the hard work that actually goes into those things as an important part of virtue. So what I see here is a lot of also the importance of overall the importance of virtue, but in a very, very practical way. And that was a real challenge, because between last night and tonight, I feel like I have much more of a deeper understanding. I had the theory of the gunas last night, but this is the very practical application of everything that we've heard here this evening. And I can put those two together pretty closely. Now I feel like I understand them. So that I'm very thankful for.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next up is Brian, followed by Evanique. Brian.
The so you asked for comments, not just questions.
You can go ahead and make your comments, and you can put questions in there. I'm going to collect all the questions, and then if you have time, we will deal with them.
Okay, well, I do have comments. I just want you to, as a comment, I want you to know that I just feel very exhilarated right now from this commentary on the Gita in different ways. But one thing that just strikes me is that these are words and insights that come from centuries ago, from an entirely different place and a different context. And they just seem so contemporary and so modern, so real, and so intimate for me right now. To me, it's just a wonder. And then it makes me feel that these statements are in touch with things that are enduring, even, say eternal, or the ever present here and now was ever present then and there. And they captured it. And then a couple other things that the philosophy, I just know, because I've done, I've throughout my life, but especially since I've retired, I've done more time on the modern Western philosophy and psychology. And I've heard, that much of the Western philosophy and psychology has been deeply influenced by Indian wisdom tradition since we started translating it into the Western languages. And that started in the early and middle 1900s. And now I'm seeing how that really is true, because I cannot, I have an understanding of what you said today based on my background in these other things that the modern Westerners have tried to put into their own terms and apply their own disciplines to these things that you said tonight. And then finally, I will say that yesterday evening, I was still struggling to understand the Gunas and what you were presenting. And I did more work on it today, throughout the day, in anticipation of this meeting. I looked at other commentators, and I just want you to know that I feel that your comments were the most elucidating, the most helpful, the most insightful for me. And I really, really appreciate that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Vineek.
Yeah, I want to echo what everybody else said, and just to say thank you. I think what I really got from tonight is balance, and especially with the three gunas, because I think last night I was left with that a guna may be bad or good, or a guna leads you towards the center or away from the center. And tonight, with the presentation, what I got was that, to kind of like lean into the feeling of, what the guna is. And, like there's a guna, like you choose, I have it right here, sorry, that you accept which guna you want to accept, or that is needed to accept. Like sometimes you need to sleep because you've been working all day, and you choose the type of sleep that you get. And it's really about self-care. And like sometimes you don't feel like doing anything because you've worked all day, and you can lean into just relaxing, maybe reading a book. I get like maybe scrolling through something, sitting there and doing nothing isn't helpful, but like sitting there and reading a book, which is like restful and relaxing, like you said, reading a good book before you go to bed, or having a good conversation before you go to bed. It's not necessarily working all the time, but you're leaning into that. I would like to call it, like, I think laziness is when it's not good, but when it's rest, I think it's good. Like it's rejuvenating. So I think looking at it like that, even with bliss, like being careful that you're not falling too much into it. But I like the part where you say you just lean into the feeling and you don't have to do anything with it, but accepting that that's the feeling that you're having right now. Because I think a lot of times we try to say we're not having that feeling, or we don't want to have that feeling, so, or we shouldn't have that feeling. Whereas, and it's been talked about in other areas of the Gita, that feeling or that emotion is that emotion. And to just lean in and accept it. And so I just got like this whole sense of balance tonight. So thank you. It was very helpful. And I agree with others that said the practical examples were amazing. Like they were really helpful in understanding the gunas.
Thank you, Evanik. So, Yogeshwar, so let me ask a question because it kind of goes to everything everybody has found useful to kind of look at it further. So let's say that you're committed to be sattvic, pursuing the sattva guna. Can you describe in detail to what extent, how would you interact with rajas and how would you interact with tamas for somebody who is committed, completely committed to pursuing sattvic guna?
So if you're committed to sattva guna, what we need to understand is because when you're starting to get committed to sattva guna, there as well, you will need something to take you ahead. You'll need a push. Yeah, you'll need the rajogun to make your mind go into that direction. You need that action. If you're not doing any action, then you'll not even be able to go to sattva guna. Like in Sankhya Karika, Sankhya Tattva Kaumudi, which is a tika of Sankhya Karika, and it's very profound. There it's written that if even Sattva Gun and Tamo Gun were just there and Rajogun did not help them, then even Sattva Gun and Tamo Gun would not be able to do their work, because work means Rajogun. Being dominant or being prevalent is Rajogun itself. So even though Sattva Gun is prevailing at a certain time, it is with the help of Rajogun at that point in time. So if you want Sattva Gun to prevail in you, know that you have to do some work. Yes, that's the first thing, that you have to go ahead. You have to take that Sattva, that Rajogun within you. And one thing you first have to accept before even choosing, first you asked if you want to become a Sattva Gun. So first, where I would want to stand at this point is first know yourself. Because you may be Rajoguni, and it's not a bad thing to be Rajoguni. Or you may be Tamoguni, and that's not a bad thing as well. First, know yourself. Know yourself that you are Sattva-guni, or you are Rajoguni, or you are Tamoguni. Then, slowly, you can manifest yourself from whichever gun you are coming from. Because if you're a person who needs work, you cannot say that now I'll start doing dhyana the next day. What will happen is that that whole work, if it was physical, what will happen is when you now start doing dhyana, it will start becoming mental. All those thoughts will start running in your mind. You'll not be able to stop the thoughts. So first thing to do is know who you are, where you come from, what your swabhava is. When you know that, then you go a step ahead. Knowing your swabhava and then building upon your swabhava. That's the first thing. Don't first run to Sattva Gun if you want it. First build upon who you are with the greatest detail, whereby you know that if I'm Rajoguni, yes, I will need something ahead of me to pull me ahead. So give that objective, give that goal mindfully. Pay attention to the goal and pay attention to what you're doing. Once you've done that, you'll slowly realize that, should I only do it for the goal, or should I have something to pull me from within? You slowly, this through experience, you can't do it in one day. You can't say, I'll remove all the goals of my life in one day. That doesn't happen. You slowly do it. Then you realize that, no, it should be out of my talent. It should be out of my hobby that I should be doing anything. Then out of your hobby, you start doing it slowly by slowly. Like, for example, if you have a hobby of painting, then you start to know different types of artwork, start to know different types of painting. That will not be pravruti arambha, because we know that rajogun is out of pravruti arambha. You need to start doing something. Here, you're not starting to do something. What you're doing is getting pulled by what is normal for you. And that's not pravruti arambha. That is just going by your swabhava. That's going by your own talent. When you go by your own talent, just leave it to your talent. When you've left it to your talent, now you'll know the complexities. Once you start knowing the complexities of something, your mind indulges within it. You start becoming happy with just what you have. Not for the goal, not for anything ahead, but now what you've done is within your swabhava, within what you are, you've found something that can automatically pull you without you having to give a push. That will be your sattva guna. And everybody's sattva guna is different. Not everyone's sattva guna is just doing dhyana. Not everyone's sattva guna is doing work. Everyone's sattva guna is tailored to themselves. So if somebody tells you that if you want to attain sattva guna, just do dhyana, that doesn't work for everyone. What works for everyone is individual to themselves. So if you feel that my main thing is tamo guna, then what you'll be able to do is just sit in one place without even any thoughts. You'll be able to do that because you're tamogun pradhan. Because sitting is tamogun itself. Don't think that when you're doing dhyana, that is like sattva gun. Sometimes when you're seated, that what happens is you've come to tamogun when you're doing dhyana, but it is from the base of tamogun. You've come to sattva gun when you're doing dhyana, but the base is tamogun when you're seated. So know the underlying guna. Know the underlying guna of mine is tamogun. Then you can sit. And when you're seated, you can also not have any thoughts within you because your guna is tamogun. It's not rajogun that you'll start having thoughts. So when you're not having thoughts, now attend your focus to something that you like. Even though it's even attending to your focus to the laziness that you're feeling, or to the sleep that you're feeling, or just to something that is in front of you. You don't need to move at all because as per you, your own swabhav is tamoguna. So don't move at all. Just look at something or just listen to something as it is. Then you'll be able to know, yes, this is my guna. From that, now you can move towards the center. From that, you can cultivate the sattva guna, which in seated, it's called dhyana. And when you're walking, it's called karma yoga.
Wow. Okay. So just, I think this is very profound. The thing that strikes me about it, and I will wrap it up in 2 minutes. What really strikes, what really stays with me here is the profound acceptance that Bhagavad Gita and Indian philosophy has, and the emphasis it places on this concept of swabhava, of getting to know your swabhava. Swabhava means your own nature. So it's a profound acceptance of yourself and your own nature as a starting point, and cultivating the awareness of it and slowly working with it. And it is trying to list all the possible svabhavas, all the possible ways you can be, and saying, okay, if you're like this, you can do this. So thank you very much, Yogeshwar. Really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you again on Thursday. All right. But everybody else, you're welcome to make comments or ask questions. I don't think I will be able to answer them too well, but I want to encourage you to continue the comments. See, the thing that I really, that really stays with me is this acceptance. And it's such a deep acceptance, because it's like, it is saying that, yes, there is a center, and you are where you are, and you have to kind of grasp where you are. You have to grasp of your tendency of which way is easy for you to move, and work with it. And everything begins with the acceptance. So that is just very profound. So we'll start with, so please go ahead and, say whatever you want to say. Let's go with Jyoti, followed by Joe. Jyoti. Just a second, let me make sure you can unmute. Go ahead, Jyoti.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment that this kind of environment that we are here right now in the Zoom, with likewise people who are taking in the whole lecture, it really supports the Sattvic Guna, that if you are trying to drift a little bit, it brings you back. So this is really very useful for all of us to be listening at the same time and reacting and soaking it all in. So I really appreciate all these lectures from Yogeshwar, and our interaction, feedback, and what have you. It keeps me anchored. Thank you.
No, wonderful, wonderful observation. So Sattvic is kind of being focused on the center, so it helps. The other thing is that, this is a point about environment and yourself. Putting yourself in good environments is good for you. Like interacting with good people is good for you, because what it does is that there is a resonance effect between the gunas. If two people are going in the same direction, their interaction actually helps both of them move forward in that direction. So also noticing the differences of how people approach things is useful. Different people notice different things that you would not have noticed. Like, for example, Brian's observation that these ideas have percolated in the Western culture, and they have appeared at various places. Like, for example, we saw example of the transcendentalist. We saw the example of Louis Sullivan. We saw the example of Carl Jung. But there are many, 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 many such examples of how these ideas have percolated. Now, I had not made that connection. And then as soon as Brian said, oh, yes. So there is just so much that you can get, and it is like a fire, it's like you are like one ember, and you have all these other embers around you, and that allows you to burn more brightly as a result of all the exchange that is taking place. Thank you, Jyoti. Next up is Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic point. A lot of the connections that I make are primarily due to the people, to what feedback we're given. But one of the important parts about this evening, and actually Jyoti actually kind of hit on it, is that by being in a community that you're listening, you're developing habits as well, good habits. And that kind of gets to a very important aspect of virtue. because virtue is something that you kind of can cultivate, and so that you can develop. And it directly relates to what Yogeshwar was talking about tonight with the Gunas, and just how we can develop our habits and move the movements in between the Gunas that allow us to actually progress forward as towards the center, so to speak. So it's actually very, the development of habits is also seen as virtuous, and as much in the West as well. And it is I think that that's one of the key points that, taking away this evening, is that these are things that can be cultivated. And so anyway, I just thought I would add that.
The one point I wanted to make is that Yogeshwar actually lives these ideas, and you can see it in how he speaks, how he talks about it, how fluidly he can bring up concrete examples, how he can answer questions. I mean, that is something really remarkable, because these ideas, you have to, they are useful only if they are living, if they are living in you. And he is remarkable because he has internalized many of these ideas. And he's completely in the Indian tradition of saying that, look, I understand them to some extent, and I'm trying to understand them more, and I will keep trying to understand them more. So he is a seeker, and that is the Indian tradition. And that is, like, for example, giving you example of the Indian classical musicians, people who are at the very top of the field would say exactly the same thing. I'm trying to understand this rag. I'm trying to learn how to sing it properly. At the age of 80, they will say that, having sung that for probably like tens of thousands of hours. And that's exactly in the Indian tradition. So next up is Brian. Brian, go ahead.
So I wanted to pick up on and tie in a bit with what Joe said, but also more generally, I've been focusing on trying to understand the center, and I think, it needs to be experienced, can't just be described. But you can indicate or point to it in different ways, and I'm kind of paying attention to that. And one way that that you can point to the center is the constellations of things that are around it. And so with your chart that you've developed, that's a constellation of things around the center. It can't be a center. If we're going to use a spatial analogy, if it's a center, that means there's stuff around it. And when you identify the things that are around it, you start to get a sense of where the center is, what it might be. And then more and more you can start looking in that place. But, and that's what Purusha has been, and, consciousness and being aware, and the glass, and there's so many of these things have just been, they're all along that line. And that ties into what I think what Joe said earlier on the balance. I think that's also a way of looking at where this, of getting a sense of where the center is. The center is kind of intuitively, it's a point of balance and stillness and all these things that, there are just so many different ways of describing it. But the point of balance is really very intimately connected with the idea of center. I thought that was very helpful for me.
Wonderful. I mean, one thing that really stands out is how Aristotelian this entire approach is. That you are focusing, you're trying to understand how the world is working and how it works in the most exquisite detail. You're trying to understand its movement, and you can say that, this is existence. The center is like the center of gravity of all of it. If you think of it as center of gravity, then all of it is actually kind of arose from it and is falling back into it. And it's not about saying no to Prakriti, to the periphery. It is not center versus periphery, because the moment you do that, you lose the integration. It is this continuous movement from.
Yeah, you have no center unless you have a periphery.
Yes, so it is a continuous movement of kind of periphery talking to the center and center talking to the periphery. So it's a conversation, continuous conversation between center and the periphery. Next up is Jyoti.
Yeah, after listening to all these lectures and your diagram and what have you, I think my morning rituals, I especially noticed that they have taken a very positive turn. I look at sun in a different way. I look at my own emotions in a different way. I integrate things differently, and I feel very satisfied. Like at the end of the day, like all the work that I have put in myself, I see it happening. But the results are there. So it's really has a very positive impact. I'm sure it's doing it to everyone over here who's coming for these lectures. So it's a profound impact. And I would really like to see Yogeshwar's environment where he sits. There are trees at the back. It seems like it's a very serene kind of atmosphere. So maybe one day we can ask him, can you just show us,
What I'm trying to do, Jyoti, and this is for everybody, is that I want to give Yogeshwar his privacy. Okay. Don't want to ask him anything. He is being enormously generous in talking to us. He has expressed the desire to talk only about Gita. So please let us focus only on Gita and talk to him about Gita. Other things, he is an incredible person. And I want to give, I always like to work with people in ways which it is a complete win-win for all parties. So, and one thing that he has requested is that let's talk only about Gita. So let's talk only about Gita. Let's not bring up any other issues. Let's not bring up anything else on the Indian context, because Gita by itself is so rich and so powerful, and he's doing such a magnificent job. So let's just focus on that. I do enjoy seeing the birds flying by in the back. That's one of my favorite things. But we'll so whatever we get. Okay. Let's see here. The other thing I wanted to say is that, Jyoti, thank you very much for your feedback, because what happens is that, these things are very deep and they affect different people differently. And everybody, people sharing what it is doing for them is actually very useful for everybody. Like, for example, Rupali was telling me about how like 4-year-old kids are talking about center and periphery in her school. And people are saying, oh no, I was just acting from my periphery, I should have acted from the center. It's like a 4-year-old saying that. Now that's actually very, very interesting. And so just like, and Jyoti's description of how, how it is affecting her, all of that is very useful, primarily because each of us is different. Some things that come naturally to us, some implications that I can see naturally, that like Jyoti can see naturally, I can't, because the focus is different. We are all coming at it from different things, our faculties are different, our experiences are different. And this material that we are talking about, is so incredibly deep that I think together we can explore it far more richer way. So please do keep sharing what you're getting from it, what it is doing for you. It will also inspire other people. It also many times what happens is that the same thing is happening to other people, but when somebody names it, you'll say, oh, you know what? Yes, that's exactly what it is, what is happening. Like one person was describing how their interaction with some people have changed as a result of it. It's a very subtle change in them, and they are not kind of explicitly grasped it, but like the other person is like saying, oh, you used to get very upset, now you're not getting upset. And they didn't even notice that. It's just like they automatically started behaving in a different way just by the fact that, like the example that Yogeshwar was given, like if you're sattvic, then the way people interact with you is going to be different. So there are all kinds of observations, which I really appreciate. So now I want to tell you about a meetup I'm going to do on Sunday. I've not announced it yet. It's going to be Sunday at 9 p.m. I'm using my diagram in order to develop discussion format. I did this on Wednesday for comprehensivism, and I wanted to continue building on that. Essentially, it is using the 8 different parts of my diagram. You can look at it as Jungian functions. You can look at it as different yogas. And I'm trying to do discussions which leverage all those 8 faculties that we have. And what ends up happening is that it produces a far more richer discussion than it would be otherwise. And I'm experimenting with the order of these things, which apparently I've found is different depending on the subject and the familiarity of people with the subject. So the topic I've chosen, and I want to always choose very challenging topics. So the topic, and I want to choose topics which there is a great amount of familiarity. So there is a lot of knowledge that everybody is bringing, and we are able to talk at a much deeper level. So the topic that I've chosen for this Sunday is Carl Jung's 3 greatest ideas. So 3 greatest ideas of Carl Jung. So we're going to start using our memory. So in Jungian terms, SI, I'm going to ask everybody, what do you think are the top 3? I mean, in my meetup page, I will have a list of maybe 12 or so ideas which I think are potential candidates, but people can choose any idea that they are familiar with and that they think has been useful, like archetypes or psychological functions or individuation or shadow or persona, or it's just many, many different, or depth psychology itself or collective unconscious. There's just so many ideas. So we'll have everybody list the ideas first of talking about, these are the ideas that I have found useful. Then we are going to use thinking, like it's called introverted thinking, of actually saying, okay, which ones do you think are, if you had to pick 3 ideas, which actually do a good job of covering the work of Carl Jung. So they can't be like very similar to each other. They're different from each other and are core to his work. Which ideas would we pick? And so we'll go back and forth in a discussion to choose them. And then the rest of the meetup would build up on discussions of those 3 ideas. So don't miss it. I'll be announcing it shortly within an hour or so. I'll go ahead and put it up. So I thought the discussion format last time worked pretty well. Joe or Evanik or anybody else who was at the comprehensivist discussion, what did you guys think of the discussion format? Do you want to tell everybody, anybody, people who are here, the advantages of it?
So for me, I think the advantages of it was that it moved the conversation forward. Everybody got a chance to have their say and to have their input. Just thinking off the top of my head from Wednesday night, I think I think it was really like a progression of the conversation, where we started out with what was comprehensivism, and then you went into more of the practical, like how do we use it in our everyday life, and then we went to more like how do you apply it to the world type thing, and it really allowed you to explore the topic. I hate to use the word comprehensively.
Wonderful.
So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Joe, you want to comment very briefly?
Yeah, I think it was fantastic. The reason why is because we have to answer what it is. And not only then ask what it is, but how do you use it? But then also, why is it meaningful? And when you start to dig into those types of questions, that's when you really understand a problem or understand a topic. So that I like the way that progressed very, very nicely. And I thought that that was very powerful, where those are the types of questions sometimes when coming up with meetup topics. Why is this important? What is it relevant? How do we apply it? And those are very deep and difficult questions. So to pull that out or be able to pull that off under those circumstances, that was fantastic.
Wonderful. Brian.
Well, I thought, first of all, it was a confirmation through the discussion that really, the discussion format, which you sometimes equate with the scribal, that I still don't understand so well, but I find that this really works, this discussion format. And then the way you selected the questions, and knowing from your comments that you got it from your diagram, is an example of, I think that your diagram is really very powerful. It worked very well in this context, in what I thought was a very complete discussion of comprehensivism.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, folks. So I hope you guys will come on Sunday at 9 p.m. Look forward to seeing you soon. Bye, everybody. Good night.